The story begins far away from Earth, in a quiet part of the galaxy where stars shine a little softer and planets orbit in calm silence. For a long time, the Valerian civilization believed they were safe. They had survived storms, political changes, and even small regional conflicts. Their people were peaceful and proud, known more for their art and culture than for battle. But all of that stability shattered when an unknown force appeared at the edge of their territory. It came without warning, without a message, without even a clear shape. Some called it invaders. Some said it was a natural disaster. Others whispered that it was something older than the galaxy itself. Whatever it was, it moved through space with a kind of cold and steady pressure that none of the Valerian defenses could slow down. The first Valerian world that encountered this threat collapsed so quickly that most citizens never even understood what was happening. The second world fell a little slower, but still too fast for evacuation. By the time the third world was under attack, the Valerian leaders realized something terrible. Their entire civilization was moments away from disappearing. Their shields broke like thin glass. Their fleets scattered. Their hopes dimmed out. Their council gathered for an emergency meeting inside a quiet chamber built from shimmering blue stone. The room was usually used for ceremonies and celebrations, not fear-filled discussions about survival. One of the elder members finally said the words everyone else avoided. They needed outside help. No one within their region had the strength to face this unknown enemy. They needed a civilization with enough power to change the outcome. And there was only one name that kept appearing in their old records: humans, most young. Valerians did not believe humans were real. Their stories sounded like faded legends passed down through generations. The galaxy had not seen a human ship in centuries. Many thought humans had vanished or had destroyed themselves. Others believed humans had isolated themselves on some quiet corner of space and wanted nothing to do with anyone else. But the ancient records painted a different picture. Long ago, humans were known for stepping into danger when no one else would. They fought for peace, for justice, and sometimes simply because no one else dared to stand in the way of disaster. They were unpredictable, bold, and occasionally stubborn. Yet, they were the type of allies you wanted when all hope seemed lost. The Valerian Council searched through every archive they had, looking for the last known route toward human space. Those routes were dusty, untraveled, and outdated by hundreds of years. Still, they had no choice. They repaired an old diplomatic vessel, one that hadn't flown in decades. Its engines trembled when activated, as if unsure whether they could still function. But the crew believed in the mission. They knew they carried not only their own fate, but the fate of billions. The journey was long and tense. The crew passed ruined space stations, forgotten markers, and drifting satellites left behind by civilizations that no longer existed. For most of the trip, they saw nothing but emptiness, and they worried they were following a path toward a ghost. Some nights, the crew sat together and wondered if humans were gone. They wondered if the stories were only myths told to give frightened children some comfort. Still, they pushed forward. After many silent days, the ship finally detected something strange. At first, it looked like a faint signature, almost too weak to notice. But the signal repeated in a pattern too organized to be natural. The crew leaned in, studied the rhythm, and realized it was a human-coded signal. A very old one, but still active. It meant that humans were not gone. They were watching, even if from a distance. The ship followed the signal, weaving through quiet parts of space that felt untouched by time. Slowly, the darkness around them shifted. The stars grew brighter. The feeling of isolation faded. And then, one moment changed everything. The ship's sensors picked up multiple objects moving toward them from far away. The readings were clean, sharp, and impossibly precise. These objects weren't drifting or patrolling. They were tracking the Valerian vessel with intentional focus. The captain felt a deep wave of nervousness. The crew sat still, afraid to breathe too loudly. No one knew how humans would react after centuries of silence. Would they see the Valerians as friends or intruders? Would they allow them to speak or turn them away? Before the crew could form a plan, a message appeared on their screens. It was brief, direct, and unmistakably human. "Identify yourselves." The words carried a weight that made everyone straighten in their seats. The captain answered politely, giving their name, their purpose, and the urgent situation their people faced. The moment the final word left their communicator, the human ships disappeared from the screen, as if they had never been there. The crew panicked for a moment, thinking they had been abandoned. But then the main console lit up with new instructions. Follow the designated path. Do not deviate. A bright corridor of guiding lights appeared in space, forming a route toward a distant point. No Valerian had ever seen such advanced navigation technology. The guiding path didn't feel like a suggestion. It felt like a command crafted for safety and control. The diplomatic ship moved carefully along the route, and soon something came into view. It was the border of human space. The Valerians had expected to see a few stations or patrol ships, maybe a small outpost. Instead, they saw structures so vast they seemed to touch starlight. Massive rings floated in silence, each glowing with controlled energy. Stations the size of small moons turned slowly with perfect balance. Ships drifted in well-organized patterns, all sleek, powerful, and designed with purpose. The Valerian crew stared in awe. This was not the image of a hidden or forgotten civilization. This was the image of a civilization that had grown stronger in the shadows, one that chose silence, but never weakness. A calm human voice reached them again. Prepare for docking. The Valerian ship was guided into a huge structure that wrapped around it like a protective shell. The interior lights were bright but gentle. As the ship settled, the Valerian crew felt their fear shift into something else: hope. They realized humanity had not been sleeping. Humans had been preparing. When the doors opened, a group of human officers walked in. They did not look hostile or suspicious. They simply looked focused, disciplined, and ready to listen. One of them gestured for the Valerian captain to follow. The captain stepped out, feeling the soft vibration of the floor beneath their feet, sensing the power humming through the walls. The humans guided them through a long corridor and into a large meeting room filled with a warm, steady light. The captain spoke for almost an hour, explaining everything: the unknown threat, the collapsing worlds, the helplessness of their people. The humans listened quietly. They asked questions that were sharp and clear, revealing their experience and understanding of danger. When the captain finished, silence filled the room. For a moment, the captain feared the humans would refuse, but one human finally broke the silence. Their voice was steady, filled with something the Valerians had not felt in a long time: confidence. "We understand, and we will respond." The Valerian captain felt their breath catch. They had come across the galaxy searching for a miracle. They never expected an answer so direct, so calm, and so certain. The humans stood up, and the captain realized something important. Humanity had been waiting for a moment like this. Not to show power, not to dominate, but to step forward when no one else could. The Valerian envoy was escorted back to their ship for rest, but none of them could sleep. They stared out of the viewing windows, watching the distant glow of enormous hangars opening slowly. Something hidden was waking up, something powerful, something old, and the Valerians understood that humanity was preparing to send more than just help. Humanity was preparing to send legends. The Valerian envoy had barely settled into the quiet waiting chamber. when they felt the entire human station shift around them. The lights changed tone, a sound of machinery echoed softly through the walls, and the atmosphere seemed to sharpen. It was as if the whole place had suddenly taken a deep breath and awakened. What the Valerians didn't know was that the moment the humans agreed to help, messages had already begun traveling through secure channels across the solar system. Every major human base received the same clear instruction. The galaxy needed them, and they could not stay silent anymore. On Earth, the oceans reflected the glow of great cities filled with towering structures and advanced transport systems. People at home knew nothing about the events unfolding far beyond the skies. But inside the strategic centers, emotions shifted from calm routine to focused urgency. Humans had faced many things in their history. Some were born from nature, some from conflict, and some from situations that tested their unity. And each time, they rose above those challenges with a level of determination that surprised even themselves. In a vast command room located beneath the surface of the moon, a group of senior human leaders studied the information the Valerians had provided. They looked at images of destroyed worlds, broken fleets, and the recordings of the unknown enemy. The silence in the room wasn't caused by fear. It was caused by clarity. They understood the weight of what was happening. They understood what it meant if they refused. And they understood what humans had always done whenever darkness spread too far. One of the leaders leaned back, thinking not about strategy, but about the responsibility that came with power. For centuries, humans had stepped away from the galaxy, tired of endless conflicts and misunderstandings. They chose distance instead of dominance, quiet instead of constant war. They focused on rebuilding their homeworlds, improving technology, strengthening their society, and preparing quietly for the future. Some thought they had withdrawn out of fear, but the truth was different. Humans had simply grown wiser. They decided to step away until the galaxy truly needed them again. And now, that moment had arrived. On the surface of Mars, engineers who had been working on peaceful projects suddenly received new orders. Their massive production domes, usually used for creating energy modules and research equipment, were redirected. Huge doors slid open, revealing manufacturing machines the size of buildings. These machines had not been used in a long time. Dust barely coated their surfaces, because humans maintained them carefully, even in silence. Now they hummed back to life, reshaping metal into parts for something large, something powerful, something forgotten by the galaxy. In orbit around Jupiter, a giant platform drifted in calm rotation. It housed some of humanity's most experienced tacticians. They watched the data they received about the mysterious enemy and immediately formed theories. They studied the invaders' patterns, speed, formation style, and the strange energy readings around it. The more they studied, the more they realized how dangerous the situation was. But none of them hesitated. Humans had faced impossible situations before, and they had learned that impossibility was only a barrier for those who accepted it. Back on the Titan station, where the Valorian envoy waited, the activity reached an even greater peak. Small transports flew in and out like iron birds in a perfect rhythm. Human officers moved through the corridors with calm purpose. They whispered to one another, exchanged data pads, and reviewed encrypted messages. Though everything was busy, nothing felt chaotic. It felt practiced, structured, and efficient. This was a civilization that knew how to respond to crisis with discipline. The Valerian captain stepped out onto a transparent walkway that gave a wide view of space. The stars shimmered in a soft pattern, but their eyes were drawn to something else. Several human warships moved in formation toward a distant hangar. Some were sleek and narrow, built for speed. Others were massive, with smooth surfaces that reflected starlight. Each one carried a presence that made the Valerian captain feel small, yet strangely safe. A human officer approached quietly, noticing the captain's gaze. They didn't speak at first. Humans often believed in giving space instead of filling silence with unnecessary words. After a moment, the officer finally said, "These are only the first units. The important ones will be activated soon." The Valerian captain didn't ask what important ones meant. The way the officer said, it was enough to understand that humanity still had many secrets the galaxy had never seen. The meeting hall where the humans gathered later was built deep within the station. It was shaped like a circle, with layered seating arranged around a central table. As the lights dimmed, the table lit up, projecting a detailed map of the galaxy. Every star, every world, every point of interest glowed softly. The Valorian territory appeared as a cluster of bright blue lights, though many of those lights flickered weakly, representing the worlds under attack or already lost. The human representatives studied the map quietly. They didn't speak over one another. They didn't shout. They didn't panic. Instead, they discussed calmly, as if they had been preparing for this exact moment all along. One representative traced the path of destruction, left by the unknown enemy. They pointed out strategic weak points, the places where resistance had fallen too quickly, and areas where the Valerians could still regroup. Their voice was steady, almost too steady for the severity of the situation. But that steadiness was exactly what the Valerian envoy needed. When humans finished analyzing the situation, they made their decision in a single phrase that felt like a promise. "We will break our silence." Those 4 words traveled through every communication network in human space. They reached the hidden research bases near Neptune, the military academies floating above Venus, the deep space scanning posts positioned near distant comets, and the advanced fusion shipyards built into the rings of Saturn. Everywhere those words arrived, the same thing happened. Humans prepared. The Valerian crew watched in amazement as the humans moved with a sense of unity they had never seen before. There were no arguments, no confusion, no hesitation. It was as if every human, whether working in a control room or lifting equipment in a dock, understood exactly what needed to be done. Deep beneath the Titan station, in a secure lower chamber, a section of the floor slowly opened. A hidden elevator descended into darkness. The Valerian captain was allowed to accompany a group of human officers down into that secret area. What they saw below left them speechless. A long hallway stretched ahead, lit by soft white lights. On either side stood tall metal doors with warnings etched on their surfaces. The doors looked old, as though they were built many years ago. Yet the material seemed untouched by time. The captain sensed that whatever lay behind those doors was not ordinary. The air felt heavier, the shadows deeper, the silence more intense. One of the officers explained quietly, "These are older projects. They were locked away after the last major conflict our people faced. Not because they were unsafe, but because they were too powerful for regular use. We only open them when there is no other choice." The captain felt their skin chill. They heard stories of human power, but stories were nothing compared to standing in a place where that power slept. As the humans approached one of the great doors, a scanner activated, scanning their faces, voices, and even their heartbeat patterns. The door took its time, as though testing them. Then, at last, it slid open. The space beyond was enormous, more like a cavern than a room. And in the center rested the silhouette of a giant warship. Not a simple vessel meant for patrolling or escorting. This one felt ancient and legendary. Its hull was marked with symbols the captain didn't recognize. Its engine ports were larger than entire Valerian shuttles, and its front structure gave the impression that it could cut through anything that dared to block its path. The human officer simply said, "This is just one. There are more." The captain realized the truth. Humanity had not been hiding because they were weak or afraid. They had been hiding because they were protecting something far greater knowledge. Power and tools the galaxy was not ready to witness until now. Later that night, as the Valorian captain returned to their quarters, they looked out the window again. And for the first time since their world had fallen, they felt something strong rise inside their chest. That hope, that humanity, had broken in silence. And the galaxy was about to feel the weight of that decision. The next day began with a quiet hum that spread through the entire Titan station. It wasn't loud or alarming. It was steady, deep, and filled with meaning. Anyone who had lived on the station long enough knew that this sound didn't happen during normal days. It was a signal. Something important was waking up. The Valorian captain stood near the observation window, watching the human docking rings rotate gracefully in the distance. At first, everything looked the same as the night before. The stars still sparkled gently, and the station lights glowed in calm lines. But then, one of the far hangars opened with a slow, deliberate movement. A soft golden light spilled out, brighter than anything the captain had seen on the station so far. Human officers passed by in a silent rush. None of them looked stressed. Their expressions held focus, determination, and something more, a kind of pride that only comes when a nation finally reveals what it has kept hidden. For too long, the captain followed the group of officers down the main corridor, not because they were invited, but because they sensed that something significant was about to happen. And humans, to their surprise, didn't stop them. Instead, one officer gave a small nod, as if saying they understood the captain's need to witness whatever came next. The central hall buzzed with activity. Screens displayed shifting patterns of energy signatures. Maps updated in real time. Human technicians moved in perfect rhythm. Even their silence had a certain confidence to it. The Valorian crew, who had arrived earlier, stood close together, watching the energy readings rise higher and higher. A young human technician looked at the Valorians with a calm smile. "You might want to hold your breath," they said jokingly. "This is something most of our own people haven't seen in generations." The floor beneath them vibrated softly, as if something massive was being powered up under the station. The captain felt a strange pressure in the air, something between excitement and awe. It was like standing inside the heart of a sleeping giant, right at the moment it opened its eyes. A voice echoed across the hall. "Activate the fleet." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that sank deep inside everyone who heard them. The screens began showing the hangar interior wide, dark, and filled with quiet shadows. Slowly, the shadows shifted, and bright white lights swept across the room like rising suns out there, positioned in a perfect row, were ships so enormous and so unique that they didn't look like simple machines. They looked like monuments built by a people who had faced storms and refused to break. The Valorian captain felt their breath stop. They had expected ships, but not these. These vessels weren't just built for war. They were built to be remembered. The first ship stepped into motion, but it didn't slide forward like normal vessels. Instead, its hull segments opened gently, revealing glowing lines of deep blue energy that pulsed like veins beneath metal skin. The ship's engines awakened with a sound that felt ancient, almost like a distant heartbeat, echoing through space. The humans around the hull didn't cheer or shout. They stood straight, almost solemnly, like they were watching a sacred moment. Many of them had only heard stories about these ships, their victories, their last use, and why they had been sealed away for so long. One officer leaned closer to the captain. "You're witnessing the fleet of legends," they said quietly, almost as if they didn't want to disturb the moment. These ships were made during a time when humanity faced threats far beyond anything the galaxy knew. They were too powerful to be used lightly. So we stored them away until a day came when the galaxy truly needed them again. The Valorian captain swallowed hard. Why reveal them now? They asked. The officer's answer was simple. Because your people asked for help. And because what's coming requires more than regular strength. The second ship emerged next. Its hull was darker, shaped with long, sharp edges that hinted at speed. Glowing symbols lined its surface, each symbol telling a part of its history. These symbols weren't decorative. They were battle marks from past victories, preserved like living memory. Then came the third ship, a massive structure that looked like a floating mountain of steel. It moved slowly, but its presence filled the entire hangar with a feeling of safety. The Valerians stared, realizing that if one of these vessels had been present during the fall of their worlds, the outcome might have been completely different. Humans behind the screens adjusted settings and ran checks. But the Valerian captain noticed something else. Every technician treated these ships with respect, not the kind given to ordinary machines, but the kind people give to something that carries part of their history. The hangar lights shifted again, revealing another door slowly opening. The humans around the hall straightened. Even the captain could feel the shift in the air. Something special was inside this one. A cold silver glow spilled out. And when the ship inside appeared, the entire hall fell silent. It was bigger than all the others. Its hull was forged from a metal the captain didn't recognize, shining like liquid light. Its engines were hidden beneath layers of reinforced shielding. The front of the ship carried a single long ridge that ran through the center, giving it a sharp, commanding form. It wasn't beautiful in a soft way. It was beautiful in a way that made the heart tighten. A human officer spoke with quiet pride. This one, they said, hasn't flown in more than 200 years. The Valerian captain couldn't understand why a ship so powerful had been kept locked away for so long. But then they saw the expressions on the human officers' faces. It wasn't fear of the ship. It was respect. Humans knew its potential. They knew its power. And they knew that unleashing it meant the galaxy was facing something worth measuring their greatest strength against. The ship rose slowly, carried by gravity stabilizers, toward the launch tunnel. It didn't roar. It didn't shake the station. It moved with a kind of calm confidence, like a veteran warrior stepping onto a battlefield one more time. The Valerian captain whispered, "What do you call it?" A human beside them answered softly, "It has many names, but most people call it the first star." The captain felt a quiet shiver. A name like that wasn't given casually. It hinted at beginnings, at the root of human strength, at the symbol of an entire civilization. More ships awoke, each one unique. Some were designed for long-range combat. Others were built for shielding entire fleets. Some looked like carriers capable of protecting hundreds of smaller vessels. Each one carried a story, a legacy, and a purpose. By the time all the ships had powered up, the hangar glowed like a field of small suns. The Valerian crew watched with wide eyes. They felt both relief and disbelief. Their fragile world had been falling apart, breaking piece by piece. And here, on this human station, an entire fleet older than their own history had awakened in a single day. The human commanders moved toward the main control panel. A series of symbols flashed. Clearance levels unlocked. Navigation routes loaded. Orders were issued with calm, steady voices. The fleet began moving toward the launch gates. One by one, the great doors opened, and the ships drifted out into open space. The moment they crossed into the dark void, their engines flared with controlled bursts of brilliant energy. The Valerian captain pressed a hand against the window. Unable to stop staring, this was not just a group of warships. This was a message from humanity to the galaxy, a message that said, "We are here. We have returned, and we are not afraid." For the first time in a long time, the Valerians felt that the darkness threatening their worlds would finally meet something stronger, something ancient, something prepared, something legendary. And the captain knew, deep inside, that whatever came next would change the galaxy forever. The moment the fleet of legends left the Titan station, the entire solar system seemed to react. Human ships of all sizes moved aside, giving the massive vessels a clear path. Civilian observation platforms dimmed their lights to avoid interference. Even the orbital traffic routes froze in place, waiting respectfully for the fleet to pass. The Valorian captain stood inside a transport shuttle that had been assigned to accompany the humans. The shuttle was small compared to the giant human ships around it, but it offered a clear view of everything happening outside. As the transport drifted gently, the captain could see the enormous shapes of the legendary ships, slowly forming into organized lines. There was something mesmerizing about how humans formed their fleets. They didn't rush. They didn't crowd. Each ship moved like it already knew exactly where to go. No one commanded loudly. No one shouted orders. Everything happened with calm certainty, as if this formation had been practiced for centuries, probably because it had. The Valorian crew watched quietly. Some of them had tears in their eyes, though they tried to hide it. After losing so many worlds, after watching their own fleets collapse like sand, seeing such order and strength felt like witnessing the return of daylight after a long night. The human officers on the shuttle began preparing the navigation route. Their screens glowed with maps, warnings, and flight paths. But even their movements were smooth. They weren't anxious about going to battle. They were simply ready. The Valorian captain listened to the steady voices of human commanders speaking through the communication. System, all units ready. Formations, locked. Drive core stable, awaiting launch signal. Then, a final voice came through. It was calm and deep, carrying a quiet authority that instantly filled the shuttle. Fleet of legends, move out. The engines of the human ships ignited. Light filled the space around them. Bright blues, golds, and deep silvers. The human fleet shot forward with a controlled burst, leaving long trails of shimmering particles behind them. Even the captain, who had traveled across countless star systems, had never seen such beauty mixed with such power. The Valorian shuttle followed closely, guided by the human's navigation system. It felt like being carried by a river of pure strength. As they left the outer boundary of human space, the stars around them shifted. The familiar patterns gave way to the darker regions of the galaxy. Empty space stretched in every direction, broken only by distant flickering lights. But even here, in the deep silence between stars, the human fleet moved like one enormous entity. After several hours, the first checkpoint appeared, a lonely observation post built by the humans generations ago. It still functioned perfectly, scanning the horizon for anything unusual. As the fleet passed it, the post transmitted one simple message: good luck. The Valorian captain felt a small smile form. They could sense that the entire human civilization stood behind this mission, even those not directly involved. Inside the shuttle, the Valorian crew sat with human officers around a projection table. Images of the enemy attacks appeared above it. Shattered Valorian cities, burning skies, broken ships scattered like debris. The humans studied each image carefully, not with shock, but with determination. One of the officers said quietly, "We will not let this happen again." The words weren't dramatic. They weren't shouted, but they carried such firm resolve that the captain knew they weren't empty promises. Soon, the fleet reached the Valorian frontier. The moment they crossed into that region, the atmosphere changed. Space didn't look peaceful anymore. It felt wounded. Broken satellites drifted aimlessly. Destroyed stations floated like frozen reminders of loss. Even the starlight seemed duller here. The Valorian captain lowered their eyes. This region used to be full of life, trade, art, music, children laughing. Now it felt like a silent graveyard. But the humans did not slow down. Their ships scanned the area, sending data back and forth. In minutes, they created a full map of the frontier, marking safe paths, dangerous zones, and places where recent battles had been fought. Then the sensors picked up something ahead. A faint heat signature. Moving slowly. A damaged Valorian ship. The Valorian captain rushed to the window. The ship drifted sideways, its hull cracked, its lights barely blinking. It looked like it had survived something terrible. No life signs appeared at first dot, but then the human scanners detected faint signals. Survivors. Without hesitation, a human rescue unit broke from the formation and sped toward the wounded vessel. Even though the unknown enemy could have been nearby, even though the area was dangerous, humans didn't think twice. Saving lives always came before the battle. Within minutes, they boarded the damaged ship, carried survivors to medical pods, and stabilized everyone. The Valorian captain watched with disbelief. The humans didn't treat the survivors with suspicion or fear. They treated them with care, as if they were their own people. The rescued Valorians woke up confused and terrified. But when they saw the human uniforms and the legendary ships waiting outside, they cried with relief. One of them said, voice trembling, "We thought the galaxy abandoned us." A human officer simply answered, "We don't abandon anyone." With that small rescue complete, the fleet moved toward the last known position of the enemy force. The deeper they entered Valorian territory, the more destruction they saw. Empty starports, darkened cities, silent communication towers. For the Valorian captain, every sight felt like reopening an old wound, but the humans seemed to absorb that pain, turning it into determination rather than despair. Then, finally, the alarms began to ring. The enemy had been detected. Strange shapes appeared on the scanners, moving fast. Unpredictable, surrounded by swirling clouds of energy that made them hard to track. No one had ever managed to record them clearly before. But human scanners had stronger sensors, and they captured every detail. The enemy moved like packs of shadows, shifting in unnatural patterns. Their energy readings spiked wildly. They didn't send messages. They didn't negotiate. They didn't hesitate. They rushed straight toward the fleet. The Valorian captain braced for chaos. Instead, they saw something unbelievable. The human fleet did not panic. They did not break formation. They did not fire randomly. They moved with perfect unity. Commands echoed through every ship. Shields up. Lock. Positions. Prepare long-range volleys. Even as the enemy approached at frightening speed, the humans stood firm. Their ships glowed with power, the same deep blue and silver energy the captain had seen in the hangar. The fleet of legends activated their full systems for the first time in centuries. The enemy fired first violent blasts of twisting energy, but the human shields absorbed. The attack with barely a ripple. Then the humans responded. Synchronized wave of bright beams erupted from the front lines. The shots didn't scatter. They didn't miss. They hit with precision, cutting through the enemy formations and forcing them to scatter. The Valorian captain felt their heart race. For the first time since the invasion began, the enemy was pushed back. More enemy ships came, surrounding the humans from every side. But the humans didn't lose balance. Their carriers launched waves of smaller craft, moving like swift streaks of light. Their shield ships rotated to protect exposed areas. Their dreadnoughts aimed at the larger enemy clusters, firing bursts that shook the battlefield. The Valorian captain realized something important. This wasn't just strength. It was experience. Humans had fought threats like this before. They understood how to turn chaos into control. They knew how to take fear and use it to sharpen their focus. Every movement, Every blast, every defense line, everything showed a civilization that had survived storms far darker than anyone realized. Within minutes, the enemy attacks slowed. Their chaotic movements became disorganized. Their formations broke apart. One by one, they retreated into the shadows. The Valerian captain stared, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. For the first time, the invaders were forced to run dot, and as the human fleet advanced, the captain finally understood the true meaning of the phrase "fleet of legends." It wasn't just about the power of the ships, it was about the humans who commanded them. Humans who didn't hesitate. Humans who didn't fear. Humans who came when no one else would. The battle was only the beginning, but the galaxy had already changed. The victory felt unreal to many who had lived through the fear of losing everything. For the aliens who had sent the first call for help, the silence that followed the final battle felt almost too quiet. After so many days of worry, so many hours of watching the unknown force grow stronger, the sudden calm made them feel as if the universe itself was taking a long breath. The humans had pushed the threat back farther than anyone thought possible, and now the galaxy was trying to understand what had just happened. For the first time in living memory, there was hope again. When the last reports confirmed that the danger was gone, the Valerian leaders prepared to meet the humans to express their thanks. Many of them had imagined this moment earlier, wondering what they would say or how they would show their gratitude. But standing there now, waiting for the arrival of the Terran fleet representatives, they realized something simple and strange. Every word felt too small. How could they thank the people who had saved entire worlds? How could they honor those who stepped forward without hesitation when others hesitated or ran? They practiced their lines again and again, but even then, the moment felt larger than anything they could prepare for. When the human fleet returned, it did not arrive with bright colors or loud engines. Instead, it came in quietly, moving with the same calm discipline that had defined every moment since they appeared. The ships drifted into formation above the Valerian capital world, shining faintly under the light of the twin suns. Even damaged and scarred from the battle, they looked steady and confident, like guardians who did not need to show strength to prove it. People on the ground stopped what they were doing to stare at the sky, not with fear, but with awe and deep respect. The Valerian Council arranged a gathering in a large open plaza, a place built long ago for peaceful meetings rather than crisis talks. When the humans finally arrived, their group was small. The fleet could have sent thousands, but they sent only a handful of representatives, people who carried themselves with quiet dignity. They did not act like heroes, even though everyone saw them that way. They stood simply, listening carefully as the Valerian leaders stepped forward and began speaking. One of the elder Valerans thanked them first. His voice trembled slightly, but not from fear. It was emotion. He spoke about the fear his people had felt, the long nights without sleep, and the worry that their homes might disappear forever. He explained how the arrival of the humans had changed everything, how the moment their ships appeared, people found hope they thought they had lost. He spoke slowly, choosing every word with care, trying to show the depth of their gratitude without overwhelming the moment. When he finished, others stepped forward, 2 scientists, advisors, young officers who had fought beside human pilots during the operation. They all shared their stories. Some spoke about the first time they saw the fleet of legends up close. Others talked about the calm professionalism of human commanders, who explained strategies in simple, clear ways that made even complex plans feel manageable. One young officer said that watching the humans work felt like watching a storm that moved with purpose but never lost control. Every person who spoke did so with genuine respect. The humans listened without interrupting. Their expressions stayed calm and thoughtful. When it was finally their turn to respond, the person leading the human group spoke in a soft but steady voice. They thanked the Valorians for their trust and said that the honor of helping was not theirs alone. The speaker explained that humanity had learned long ago that standing alone made a galaxy feel too big and too cold. Helping others was not something they did for praise or recognition. It was something they believed was simply right. The speaker added that humanity did not see themselves as saviors. They saw themselves as partners in survival. This answer surprised many of the Valorians. They had expected the humans to accept the honor or at least show pride in their victory. But instead, the humans responded with humility. They did not even mention their most powerful ships or the incredible moves that had turned the tide. They simply stood together as ordinary people who believed in helping others. No matter how far away or unfamiliar they might be, the Valorian leaders tried to offer gifts, rare crystals, diplomatic privileges, and even territory rights, but the humans politely declined all of it. They said they did not come for rewards. Saving lives was enough. They made it clear that they were not returning to the galaxy to rule or influence others. They were still a people of quiet strength, and they wished to remain that way. They would help when needed, but they would never impose themselves on anyone. This attitude spread across the galaxy like a quiet breeze. In every star system that had feared the unknown threat, people spoke about the humans with newfound respect. They spoke of the fleet that arrived like a legend, stepping out of an old story. They spoke of the commanders who worked calmly under pressure. They spoke of the engineers who repaired alien ships without asking for anything. They spoke of pilots who risked their lives to protect people they had never met. All these stories traveled from world to world, turning into a gentle, powerful memory the galaxy would not soon forget. After the ceremony ended, the people of the Valorian capital gathered around the humans, not to overwhelm them, but to meet them with curiosity and appreciation. Children approached them with wide eyes, asking simple questions about Earth. Some asked what their oceans looked like, or if their cities were really as tall as the stories said. The humans answered every question with warmth. They smiled gently, reminding themselves that even small moments like this mattered for the future of peaceful understanding. As the day went on, the humans took time to visit areas affected by the conflict. They walked through rebuilt neighborhoods, spoke with workers who were repairing damaged structures, and listened to everyone who wanted to share their experiences. They never acted like they were above anyone. In every conversation, they made it clear that cooperation mattered more than power. This approach left a deep impression on everyone who met them. When the time came to leave, many Valorians gathered near the spaceport to watch the fleet prepare for departure. They expected the humans to take their time or wait for a grand farewell ceremony. But the humans did not seek any of that. They quietly boarded their transport, carried their equipment with efficiency, and prepared their ships for the journey home. Even in departure, their movements felt purposeful and calm, as if they understood that too much attention could make the moment feel heavy. Before the final ship left the ground, the human leaders spoke one last time. They said that the galaxy was too big for anyone to face alone. If trouble returned, the humans would come again, not for reward or recognition, but because peace mattered to every species. They encouraged the Valorians to grow stronger, to protect themselves, and to stand with each other. They reminded them that unity, not fear, would keep the galaxy safe. The Valorians watched as the human ships lifted into the sky. A gentle hum echoed through the clouds as each vessel joined the formation. The fleet of legends did not move like machines of war, but like guardians returning to a distant home. The sight was unforgettable. As the last ship disappeared into the stars, a sense of calm settled over everyone. It felt like the humans had not just saved their worlds, they had given them confidence to face the future. In the weeks that followed, the Valorians rebuilt their worlds with renewed energy. They updated their systems, strengthened alliances, and worked hard to ensure that no threat would catch them unprepared again. But in every meeting room and every training hall, one thing stayed constant: the memory of the humans who had come when asked, fought with honor, and left without asking for anything. Across the galaxy, stories of the Fleet of Legends continued to spread. Many told them with awe, others with gratitude, and some with quiet curiosity. But the message remained the same. Humanity had returned, not as conquerors, but as protectors willing to stand beside anyone who needed them. They became a reminder that even in the vastness of space, kindness and courage still existed. And far away, back in the Sol system, the Fleet of Legends rested again in silence. Their engines were quiet, their lights dimmed, and their crews returned to their families. They did not celebrate or claim victory. They simply prepared for the next time the stars called for help, knowing that somewhere out there, another world might one day need what the humans offered: best hope, unity, and a promise that no one had to face the dark alone.